welcome back. This is part two with Pastor Dan Scott, Christ Church, and honored to have him again this afternoon. And I just wanted to start out by again thanking him for coming, but also wanted to talk about this whole thing about in Psalms 90 about numbering our days. David obviously, Solomon said, "Hey, I want to teach you about the meaning and time," but then his dad, right, David, says, "I want to teach you about numbering your days." I don't know if he meant actually getting a calendar and number our days, or was that more figuratively to say, make sure that you're purposefully, are you doing things that matter? Is what I was getting. Number your days. But kind of tell me a little bit, Dan, about what you think about that whole thing about what David was trying to get to about numbering our days.
One of the greatest dangers to our lives is living mindlessly. There are plenty of people who live in a trance their entire lives and they never really wake up. They either through entertainment or diversions of different kinds, they numb themselves and they never fully live because without comprehending and fully taking in the reality of being a mortal, that our time here is limited, we never wake up and we never focus on the things that we are given to do, and our pain may be less, but so is our joy. So numbering our days is about being mindful that our days are limited. And then looking at that and saying, given that my time here is limited, how then shall I live? And for what shall I live? And what are the values by which I will live in success or in failure? Are there any values that I'm willing to fail rather than to live by these values? Are there any values I would rather die than not to live by? When we haven't established that, we don't really have a reason for living.
You were telling me that even this morning you've been working on a few things, your own notes about life and future. You want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, like I have, of course, purpose statements and so forth in the beginning of each journal I do, and I always repeat that when I start a new journal. And I also have a list of 100 things I want to do, and that list is always changing. It's interesting if one sits down and writes 100 things I want to do before I die, whether they're trivial or grand or whatever, the list keeps changing. And
so you finish those 100 things and you run.
Well, yeah, they're hard to finish. You'll be surprised how difficult it is to list 100 things I want to do.
Is your bucket list as well?
Well, yeah, it's a bucket list, but it's also trivial things, or relatively trivial. I want to plant a rose bush or whatever, which I didn't put down because it's not one of the things I want to do. But it just, I want to walk for 100 miles or whatever it is you want to do. And then there's other more grand things that you'd like to accomplish if possible.
Yeah. For me, in my book, I share a little bit about this, that it's in my first chapter, but it's like I woke up one day and I had this really, I woke up right out of bed and thought this crazy thought, I'm going to die one day. and I don't know if I was in that cathartic moment to say, this heartbeat and this brain and everything is functioning, but it's not going to be it forever.
Right.
And I think it kind of helped me think about thinking through life and going, wow, I'm sure I'm not the only one who has those nights where you get up and you have that epiphany moment to go, okay, time is limited.
A person that never comes to that moment remains a fool.
Yeah.
Because that's reality.
Yeah.
And if you drug yourself or entertain yourself or numb yourself to that reality, you will not live. Not really. No one lives without realizing they're going to die.
Wow, that brings me to a quote that I always love. I thought I knew the author, but I don't think I have. So I still quote it though. The greatest tragedy in life is to live, not to have feared dying, but it's to live your whole life and never truly lived. And I think that's what kind of you and I are talking about is purpose and time. in numbering our days is now is today, right? You know, just like salvation today is the salvation, so is our time of making a difference. Right?
Well, yeah, and that's the story of the book of Ecclesiastes. And it's like you can spend your time doing this, that, and the other, collecting things, pursuing this, pursuing pleasure, pursuing wine, all the things that go on in Ecclesiastes. And then you begin to think how vain that is. Vanity of vanity, says the preacher, all is vanity. But then you come to that point. So teach us to number our days that may we acquire a heart of wisdom is, if not the stated point of that book, it is certainly the spirit of the book. And comes to the end of that, for God will bring into judgment everything done, good and evil.
Powerful book. Of the Bible, no question. So for me, this whole idea about leaving imprints has hit me, and it's something that I want to do for now, the next phases of my 10 to 20 years. I think, you know, I look at some people, they wait too late, Dan, to talk about their story. And so I'm trying to leave my story now because I want my kids and my grandkids and their kids to really understand purpose and time as well. And so one of the things I've been doing around Christmas is and throughout the years sometimes I will write my kids a letter, just telling them how much they mean to me. Even before opening gifts, you know, that's kind of a Mauck tradition now, that I will read them a letter of what I wish for their life, not what they're getting as a gift. You know, before I give them a gift, I want to tell them what I wish for their life. And you know, so letter writing's become an important part of me putting imprints with my kids. What are some things that you might do with your own family that you feel like is an imprint that you're leaving to your kids, your grandkids, that you want, you know, to you know, them to also
Well, yeah, I also write them, and also I share with them books. From time to time, our family will read a book together. They don't always read the books I suggest, but often they do. Sometimes they wait a while. But when I encounter a powerful book or a powerful film, every once in a while a powerful message, there's not too many of those, but there's a few, then I say, let's listen to this, let's talk about that. And the discussion leads them all in different places, but keeping common touchstones for our family. As time goes on, you're not controlling the family narrative anymore, but you are facilitating it. As the different stories evolve and morph around a kind of a single family theme. So,
it's great.
You know.
I started this book with my 6th-time great-grandfather from Germany, and it's been very therapeutic for me to realize, you know, the difficulties that my family came through just getting here. You know, the one young man who didn't have enough money, but his parents gave him, as a 25-year-old, enough money to get over to America, but it wasn't enough ticket. But he was with a ship of mostly families. And I realized the impact that must have had on his life, that he came with aloneness, and yet he developed his own family. He made it. People died on that ship. He saw life that he'd never seen before. People got sick, rationed for food at the end. So I guess what I'm saying is, I think we can learn from our those imprints, whether they're good or bad. You know, we've had some in our family that were really good, and then we had some alcoholic in the family too. So I think those are also things in the Bible that God teaches us, right, from Scripture, that we're to learn and become, you know, learned and through experience about imprints as well.
Yeah, our family history, the importance of it can't be overstated. You know, there's some cultures that they reverence their ancestors, so they have a shrine to them and all that. We don't do that, but we do have the commandment to honor your father and mother. There's a sense of knowing where you came from, because in some sense we're all family fragments. We have the potential of becoming persons, but it's only potential. Many people live their entire life and never really become a fully aware, conscious person that is both within a family but also knows where they're separate from their families.
Sure.
So we do that by looking back and forward. and we're stewards of a family. We're here for a little while, and we pass our family's inheritance on into the future.
I think I did that with my faith. I lived off my parents' faith, and it was a scary moment, actually. Going through, of course, I had experiences with the Lord, but there came that moment when I had to really divert myself to say, this God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and Christ, is He my God? And that was an exciting part of my life to find out. It wasn't because of my parents. It was I actually went away to school, and actually, Bible school, and I wanted to find out, is this really what it's a scary moment. I need to know, is God personable for me? And there was one night where I had an experience with the Lord all night long, and I realized Jesus Christ was not just an experiential God, He was a relational God. And that He wanted to have that relationship with me daily. And so I guess I share that to say, not only do we have imprints within family, but even on our faith, right?
Yes, the appropriate, in the first season of our life, we learn. We are apprentices, and so we learn what comes before, and at first there's not a lot of questioning of it. Our parents, grandparents, uncles and aunts, and they pass down what they've learned. Like the Apostle Paul says, I have given to you that which I received from the Lord. Mm-hmm. And we receive. But there comes a season in our life, and many people never get here, that it doesn't really become a part of our own life until we face the scary questions. Because each age and each personal life brings to us certain challenges to what we have received and learned. And we found out that some of the things that have come down from our family are not true. They're not accurate. They don't match the place we're walking through. Though in time we learn most of it actually does. And we have to wrestle with that over time. Then it becomes authentically ours, and it's living. It's not just heritage at that point. It also becomes reality to us. So we receive, it gets challenged, we alter and modify, we pass on.
You went through that on your own metamorphosis in that, right?
Sure. and I have 2 or 3 times in life.
Yeah.
Because contemporary life has pushed questions to us that our grandparents just didn't have. My grandfather truly did believe that men did not land on the moon. He said, look at that, that's Arizona, he said. God's not going to allow people to land on the moon. He'd faced so many changes in life, jet travel, all that. He couldn't fathom that. He couldn't go any further. My father, in contrast, he continues to grow. He's 86. He's always learning a new gadget, reading something new, and he goes through the inner turmoil of wrestling with newness and coming out onto the other end. And that I think we look at how to grow older, and the different examples we have like that. To me, what my father's doing now is example for life in that way.
Dan, I'm going to close up with this question. You've had some challenges in your life, just being a pastor and going through all the changes of what a pastor goes through. There's people that in business that are listening. There's pastors that are listening to this podcast. What do you see the next 10 years, and how has your experiences at Christ Church and everything else, how has it prepared you for the next phase of life? That's a huge question, but I'm throwing it at you, but maybe you can kind of summarize just what you've been through and yet where you're going and how that's maybe prepared you for the future as well.
There is, and I'll use a sport analogy, even though I'm not big in sports, but this seems to be a good one. There are great players that can last a few more years than their colleagues, but age inevitably tells them and sometimes they won't listen, but sooner or later they start losing games because they can't do the same things they used to do anymore. Then they either go get drunk or kill themselves or whatever they have to do. But a few people decide, usually if they're wise, before that moment comes when they're losing games, I can coach. To coach, you have to leave the field. if you stay on the field, you're harming your team. And also, you are not giving yourself enough time to form the right kind of wholesome relationship with the younger players that you can pass on your skill set. So you have to decide then, I have really enjoyed playing this game. Can I enjoy watching other people play the game and helping them to play well? And if you can't make that turn, you can't be a coach, and so your career's ended.
Wow.
If you can make that turn, you grieve the loss of those years, just like you grieve loss of other things in aging. But you can celebrate the gain of watching a few people surpass you, get the skill set that you have been able to pass on to them, and become extraordinary players. And we can do that in any field. Pastors almost never do this, by the way. They can't.
Hard to let go.
Yeah, they can't. But it's fear, and it's a lack of trust in the sovereign God and the flow of history, that one waters and one plants, but God gives the increase. Mm-hmm. And we got to do it.
That's great. Great analogies there. I love sports, and so that hits home to me. Yeah, I think when I think about imprints, which was really what my book is about, is story. I think you can see the value of why I think this book is so important. Is I think now is the day to share your story. Don't wait till it's too late. And I really love what Dan's saying. And whether you're in business or you're a pastor or whatever, I was part of a group called Barnabas, which was the ministry of encouragement, and that's really what I hope this book will ultimately be, Dan, mm-hmm. is for people to be encouraged to share their story, and also be willing to change. God writes different chapters, right, in our life, and
absolutely.
And you're in that season. I'm in that season.
Don't be afraid of the calendar. You're here.
Absolutely.
You're alive.
Well, Dan, thank you so much.
Well, thank
for
you
your time.
It's
very special. God bless y'all.